Welcome back into the Pig Trail Show and welcome into another Hog Hoops Report. As always, that is Kevin McPherson. I am Jacob Morris, and a heck of a news week, Kevin. We've got a roster for Arkansas. Coach Cal coming on, posting a little bit of a funny video alluding back to when he said, I met with the team. There was no team. He says there is a team this year, announcing where Arkansas stands roster-wise right now. And, we'll get to the portal additions a little bit later. Two big front court pieces for the Hogs added this week. But the big news when dropping that video was what we talked about last week in terms of returners for the Razorbacks, right? When you talk about DJ Wagner, you talk about Trevin Brazil, you talk about Billy Richmond, and then Carter Knox obviously going through the NBA draft process as well, but keeping his collegiate eligibility. What were your initial thoughts on seeing that roster and seeing returning pieces, something that you talked about? You said retention is the priority. Arkansas gets that done in the form of Wagner, Richmond, and Brazil.
It has to be your priority. And even though the two bigs were announced a day before, or whatever it was, or 2 days before, that was part of your retention once Z was out, and you didn't have a deep front line anyway, that you had to address regardless of who you're bringing back. You don't have to wait on the front line centerpieces. But you did need to find out, I think, as a fan base, but as anybody objectively looking at a roster build, you want to keep as many guys that helped you get to a Sweet 16, that helped you, get to a place where you were a made free throw away or a play here or there from being a Elite Eight team. Of course, you want those guys back. And again, these weren't extra players. You're like, oh, really? You're calling that retention guys that were on the bench and on the team but didn't really? No, these were the guys that stepped up when you lost your two leading scorers, right? On the season. When you look at that NCAA tournament run, it was the guys that you're retaining: DJ Wagner, Billy Richmond III, and of course Trevor and Brazil, that were playing their best basketball and really factoring heavily into it. The same with Carter Knox. I think it's more likely at this point that he returns than staying in. I think it's smart for him to get this feedback, and you never know. Some team may say, you know what, we're gonna go get you, man. Stay in this draft. That could happen. Keep an eye on it. Don't rule it out. But I think the odds favor Arkansas getting him back the way I see it now. And so that'll be part of the retention. I think the other key is you see a lot of players when they declare for the draft also put their name in the portal to shop their value. He did not do that. Carter Knox did not do that. So that feels like a retention piece coming. So I think absolutely. And then you understand better, these guys are going to have big roles. You brought in a top 5 signed high school class in Darius Acuff Jr. and Malik Thomas, 2 top 10 rated 5-star guards. So outside of Brazil, with what we saw in DJ, Billy Richmond III, and what I think will be Knox coming back, plus Acuff and Thomas, you've got a loaded 1 through 3 in that backcourt. So it maybe helps inform you how you finished out the roster build, because, again, the 2 big men who we're about to talk about already in the fold. But I love the video. I like the little pop-up pictures before it went into the video. I liked having the players saying, I'm all in. TB was the only one that didn't use that all in phrase. And there were people asking me about his demeanor and his, kind of low tone. That's just him.
Yeah.
That's just him. Don't read too much into that. He said he's coming back. He said some good things in there. He didn't look like a guy that was ready to pop open a champagne bottle. Looked like he was waiting in line to have a tooth extracted or something. But, still, he made the announcement. It's all good.
Absolutely. All good might be an understatement. It was nice to see. And I thought, even as small of a touch as it was, to your point, to what we've talked about prioritizing retention, who are the first people you saw in that video? Right. It said DJ Wagner, returner, Trevor Brazil, returner. Right. And I thought that was a nice little touch. And obviously joining them, like you mentioned now, are 2 really massive portal additions for the Hogs. And, we've known this might be coming. You talked about it last week. And you look at Nick Pringle, you look at Malik Ewan, 2 guys that Arkansas prioritized, 2 guys that help fill a real need in the front court. Without Big Z, really just the roster in general last year was a little bit thin in the front court. And you get 2 different types of bigs, but 2 bigs that it goes without saying are going to play really, really big roles for the Hogs next season.
Yeah, and don't lose sight of the fact that Ewan is versatile enough as a ball handler at 6'11", where he can bring the ball up court. He can be he could help relieve pressure on a press. Uh, he's got versatility in what he does. Yes, his scoring is 15 feet in, but he can handle outside of that to figure out and pass off of it too. So the idea that they're only going to sub in and out for each other and coexist that way, I think Ewan's versatile enough that you could even see Pringle and Ewan on the court.
Yeah.
Not saying for long stretches, but there's a way to make that work. So there's a complementary element to that as well, other than just having depth at the five. So I was paying attention to that, but you certainly get stronger on the glass,
Mm.
especially on the offensive glass, where Arkansas, we keep thinking about the defensive lack of defensive rebounds and how that hurt Arkansas. But one way to help offset that is to get better on your own
Yep.
offensive end on the glass, because that extends your possessions and keeps teams off offense. So you limit their possessions and, maybe drill down on some of these issues. But I love those two front court pieces. Ewan's very talented scorer, finisher, especially wheeling his way into the paint, getting closer to the basket. He can dunk. He's
Mm-hmm.
athletic, 6'11", 235. And then we know what Pringle's been in the SEC for 3 years, two at Alabama and then one at South Carolina. He can carve out space. He's physical. One of those guys that's, maybe a little bigger, Kamani Johnson. And you love that kind of player that can impose his will. I mean, think about the little stuff, sealing off bodies
Yeah.
in the paint where someone else is driving in and they just can't get around a guy to maybe help stop a drive. You see that all the time where the space eaters just clog things up in a good way. Neither one of those guys are shot blockers. I think Arkansas could still address that with the next couple of portal moves or so, maybe. But I love the addition of those two big men. And I think when we talk about the retention, we talk about those high school guys they brought in. You need guys to go out and set picks. You need guys that
Mm-hmm.
can roll to the basket. You need big men to operate with to help you be your best. And so for all those guys, yeah, they made their all-in announcements a couple of days after those two big men were announced. Hey, that's it. We checked a huge box to help us win games and help us flourish. I understand why they're all in.
Yeah, yeah, I think you make a great point on, specifically what stood out to me was just you've seen it at Bama, at South Carolina over the past couple of years with Pringle, is just this physicality in terms of, if you want to dumb it down to the old, you got finesse and you got your bruisers, right? Arkansas has its finesse covered and then some, right? You talked about the 1-2-3 in the backcourt, right? And, what these freshman guards that we're about to talk about are going to bring in terms of being able to handle the ball in some really special ways. And, Pringle and Ewan both, they just bring a level of physicality that the front court needs. They bring a level of rebounding that the front court really needs as well. Two really solid additions in the portal, and it'll be interesting to see where Cal kind of shores up the rest of the roster. I loved that he added at the end, we're not done, but I sure like what we've got with this group right now. And, part of that is the freshmen, like we have talked about time and time again. And, both Darius Acuff and Malik Thomas playing in the Jordan Brand Classic on Friday and just showing what they're capable. Both Acuff and Thomas scoring in double figures. Malik Thomas, 16 points. Darius Acuff, 20-plus points. Every single time you watch these guys playing against top-caliber competition, Kevin, it is really hard not to get really, really excited about what's coming up this fall.
Yeah, there's an alpha mentality to both
Yeah.
of those guys. And there's a fearlessness in the way that they play. Now, when you make that transition from their level and having all the success to this, there's going to be adjustments. They're not the guy. There's other dudes, right? They're not always going to be the dude. You got to learn how to play with that. So there's going to be ups and downs, right? There'll be some streakiness. Look at Carter Knox, a perfect example.
Yeah.
Guy that came in chasing shots, chasing production, kind of uncomfortable figuring out his role. But once he started clicking midway through the season, the dude took off and just got better and better. And so these are the kind of guys we're not sure exactly when. Some freshmen are hitting it from minute one, and then some it may take a while. So keep an eye on that. But both of them, you love to see it. Just looking at their All-Star season, both of them were McDonald's All-Americans. Both of them were Jordan Brand Classic guys. Acuff played in the Nike Hoop Summit. Thomas didn't. But just let's look at their numbers spread out over these events, because you're playing with the best players in the country, playing with a ton of one and done. Some of them lottery picks, a lot of first round picks in the next NBA draft after this one. When you think about it that way, the one that's coming up in June, a year from now. So 14 months from right now as we do this, some of these guys are going to get
Yeah.
drafted. But look at Acuff's numbers in these 3 All-Star games playing against the best: 19.3 points, 4.3 assists, 2 steals, and 1.7 rebounds. Okay, but he was 16 of 25 on 2-point field goals, 64%. Where he really struggled was from 3, 7 of 23, 25.9% Acuff. He did have the 4 of 8 game and what I thought was the most competitive game, which was the Nike Hoop Summit. So when the competition level and the way that it was, there wasn't a whole lot of runouts and breakdowns. Really, players locked in. He rose up and was not only efficient from 3, but made clutch plays to start that
Mm-hmm.
overtime
Yeah.
to get that victory for his team. Really was the separator there. 5 of 6 in these All-Star games from the free throw line, 83.3% for Acuff. Thomas, so that was all 3 games. Thomas in the McDonald's All-American game, Jordan Brand Classic, averaged 11 points, 3.5 rebounds, 2.5 assists, 2 steals, and he shot 50% from everywhere. 4 of 8 on twos, 4 of 8 from 3. You like that? Small volume,
Mm-hmm.
but he was 38%, over 38% on 8.4 attempts per game at overtime elite this year. So playing against really good competition in these settings, he continued to be efficient at least. And he was 2 of 4 at the free throw line, 50%. Not a lot to make out of it there. But both of them had really, I mean, there was a dunk by Thomas on Kieran Anthony,
Yeah.
Carmelo Anthony's son, who had a big game, by the
Yeah.
way, for his team. But Thomas took him to the rack and just put him in the rim, man. And that was a beautiful thing to see because it's what I saw back on the circuit. You know, both of them are fearless, but here's a guy that can also finish above the rim in Thomas, and however you want it, he can hand it out. And I mean, at some point, whatever the learning curve is moving to the next level, he's going to figure it out. Acuff may figure some stuff out a little faster. As a lead guard, you hope he does, because I have him in as a day 1 starter, period, no questions asked. I just don't see any other way. And Calipari always has at least 1 freshman. That's in the starting lineup. I don't know that you can pick out a season where that's not true, spanning the one and done era that he invented.
Mm.
So, man, it's exciting to see these guys in action. You have to put all-star. But look, there's also some Team USA FIBA stuff going on, 19U, 18U this summer. We saw Anthony Black after
Mm-hmm.
he signed with Arkansas and committed during McDonald's All-American game. He was a little bit delayed getting to campus because he was participating in one of those events. Keep an eye on Acuff. He's been a big part of Team USA. MVP last summer for the under-18 Ameris Cup. March for Team USA through that. He was the MVP, doing a little everything, scoring, assisting, rebounding, making those clutch plays. He's that guy, man.
Yeah, yeah. We've said it time and time again, but it's you. I think fearless is a great way to describe it, and that's kind of how you have, looked at these guys for a while now. And we talked about this last week, I know, but I go back to the presser that they did together for the McDonald's All American game, and
Yeah.
the way that to me it was just they kind of handled that so well. It was right during the NCAA tournament run for the Hogs, and they got asked about that and got asked about how they'd been in contact with Coach Cal and everything. And it was kind of the perfect blend of, Acuff got asked, what are you going to bring to Arkansas? And he said, I'm not going to, go in there and do anything but be myself. That's what Cal asked. And, he said he's had so many great guards. I'm just excited to be the next one, right? And, appreciating what Cal can bring to him and what Cal can add to his game. And at the same time, the fearlessness level and the confidence from both of them. I believe it was Malik who talked about how he and Darius bonded over the fact that they talked very early on and felt that they were at a different level in terms of guards, that there weren't any guards that could hang with them in the rest of the country in their class. And you can see that type of mentality they bring to every single game they play. And, it might seem small. You've mentioned it a couple of times, but in the game out in Portland, you talked about the way that Darius played early in the overtime period. I mean, these are the best of the best at this age level, and the way that, not in a bad way in any capacity, that they looked to Darius to lead the offense in that moment, right? And for him to make plays the way that he did, he naturally fits in that lead guard spot, and it's going to be really, really exciting to see what both of them are capable of next season at Arkansas, with guys also that have been through this as well. And not to hit the retention point over and over again, but that's where that experience comes in as well. It's going to be a fun blend for the Razorbacks next season. But if we go even one class further, we'll wrap up talking about J.J. Andrews. He's got a big-time announcement coming up, the Little Rock product coming up in May. We heard the Final Five. It's now a Final Three. Arkansas still in there as well. He's been a priority from the start for Cal, for Arkansas as a whole, and the Hogs make the Final Three here for J.J. Andrews.
Along with LSU and Missouri, LSU's really stepped up its NIL purse. It really, really has. You look at this portal season, keep an eye. I mean, I think Arkansas is the front runner here. He's good. He would be a legacy. I think it's Arkansas. But at the end of the day, because of NIL and because of playing opportunity promised, you have to still respect and keep an eye on programs like LSU and Missouri. This guy's an ESPN top 25 player. He's the kind of guy that's still got a shot when the McDonald's All-American teams announced for 2026. That's usually in January. We'll find out, but he's tracking for that. Big 6'6" wing, just so physically gifted and built. His dad, Sean Andrews, an All-American lineman at Arkansas in football back in the day, an All-Pro with the Philadelphia Eagles. So there's the legacy part of that. I just think there's too much. Arkansas's not basketball with its NIL. Calipari's the best at developing guys and getting to the next level. Everything points to Arkansas, but looking at what Dennis Gates has done at Missouri and promises he makes, even if he doesn't carry through on them. Yeah, I said it. Some of this other stuff. You also have to understand Arkansas does have valuation ranges for everybody on its NIL. And there aren't any real examples I can see where they've exceeded that to this point. Maybe, but not that I'm aware of. And so you just never know. Even for a high school player, the top 25 guys, there's a bigger premium on them. That's true. But I always think of if there's an upset, it's going to be something like that. And Arkansas won't get caught up in that. Calipari won't. But I doubt it comes to that. And he's getting the decision made out, getting it out of the way and made by middle of May. That weekend, that's a Thursday, May 15th. That weekend's the first live eval session for coaches to go on the road. And the circuit that JJ plays on, JJ Andrews, is the Nike circuit. So they'll be over here in Memphis. Be easy for Arkansas's coaches to get over there. They'll be crisscrossing the country, but things are kind of lining up. How would you like to go into eval season with your first big hit off the board? And if for any reason he shuts it down and goes, well, why do I need to play spring and summer? I already announced where I'm going. I don't have to showcase anything. We'll keep an eye on that. I doubt that happens, but you never know. Don't rule it out. But we got our eyes focused right now on portal, and we could see Arkansas's first big time commit for 2026, in the next month.
Yeah, he's going to announce that May 15th, 4 p.m. In the Little Rock Central Gym. So Final Three for J.J. Andrews. Like you said, it would be a heck of a pickup for the Hogs, and one that would make a lot of sense, obviously. It's just you just never want to rule out any other possibilities here. So again, Missouri, LSU, and Arkansas for the services of J.J. Andrews would be a big-time pickup for the Hogs. But that's going to do it for this week's Hog Hoops Report. As always, that is Kevin McPherson. I am Jacob Morris. We'll talk to you next week. More Picture Show coming up on the other side of the break.